and welcome to Jurassic Park for a Minute. We'll be discussing the second Jurassic Park sequel, 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And back for a requested minute he wanted to talk about, Mr. J. Jurassic. Hello, sir.
How are you guys doing? Glad to be back.
Back again. I am detecting a theme here. Whenever we come across a man-made structure on Sauna, you're back to talk about it.
Yeah, it seems yes. That's exactly what's going on.
But we'll get to all that in just a couple of minutes. Up first, our little look-in over at Jurassic-Pedia.com has an article, David, you put up of the Ken Wheatley costume guide.
Yeah, actually, in fact, I just recently edited it. Edited it. I'm in such a trouble with that word. I recently updated the article with Ken Wheatley's vice grip pliers that he uses to extract teeth. Yeah, this. What's that?
I see that picture at the bottom.
Yeah. This one was a fun one to do. It was actually suggested for me to do it, and I'm actually teaming up with Emmanuel Chen from JP Motorpool to kind of help update each other's and work with each other on our costume guides. And this one was done kind of like late at night on suggestion of a friend, and so basically almost everything he wears is like khaki military wear. He's got the BDUs, the World War II officer shirt, jungle boots, and even his hat and belt are military surplus, and his sunglasses are Ray-Ban, the General model, which is kind of ironic considering that everything this guy is wearing is military surplus.
Yeah. And
the only thing that was kind of really, really hard to find was the pouch that he keeps the tranquilizer darts in, because it's actually a modified item and not something original. They took a Turbine leather cartridge wallet and then just kind of cut it up to make it into the film version that we see. And I still haven't actually found the rifle case. That one still is escaping me.
That's actually, it's pretty cool that you're talking about that, because I was actually recently looking at that same guide of wardrobe for Wheatley, and I was like, military. I'm like, this guy is just screaming military. His entire wardrobe is just military to the T. I'm like, wow. I was like, oh, and so that was you. That's awesome, man. I was looking at those. I found the Grant one, and then I was just like, oh, look, costume guides, all right. And I started going through, and then that's one of the ones that caught my eye was the Wheatley one. And then I was just like, wow, this guy just went to town at a military surplus store. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's sort of interesting too. Like a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Jerry Harding and the veterinarian costume for Jurassic Park, and just how sort of simple items put together, and it's pretty easy to see what character you're dressed up as. Where here, even availability, most of this just is military surplus, so it'd be very easy to get your hands on majority of the clothing anyway. Not so much the pouches, and put together. Well, you'd pretty much just call it a general mercenary costume.
Pretty much.
Just without the guns.
Yeah, they're well, if it's you can have some of those like the fake replica guns if you go to like, I guess, like a party or like costume party, but like with cosplaying, they're really, really coming down on weapons in most conventions now. I think I went to the East Coast Comic-Con, I think like a month ago, I would say. And I went with my sister, and my sister is in law enforcement, and she actually mentioned when we were going in there that she's like, they're really going to come down on a lot of like the replicas of weapons. And she's like, it's sad though, because I mean, if you're like an anime character and your weapon is one of those like big swords or something like that, they don't even want none of that anymore. They're trying to take out all of that stuff. Yeah.
The sad thing is it's like, I mean, you can't even get away with it even if it's foam.
Yep, it's getting to that point. I think I've said this before on this podcast, maybe. But when I dressed up as Hammond for the year Jurassic World came out, 2015, I went to the New York Comic Con. I only went on one day. It's very expensive, and I just couldn't go for all 3 or 4 days or what it is. So I went on Thursday, and I was there full costume of John Hammond. I actually I first dressed up as John Hammond for the release of the film. I went to my local theater. My sister dressed up as a park ranger from Jurassic World. I was Hammond. But then when I went to the Comic-Con, there's going to be more people. I actually trimmed down the beard a little bit more, made it more neatly, just like Hammond. And I went over there, and as I'm walking in there, they told me I couldn't use my cane. So the rest of the con that I was there, I just looked like some old guy from Havana. Like I mean, unless you actually were a fan of Jurassic Park and not posing around with a T-shirt that says Jurassic Park, but yet you don't know what's the difference between a raptor and a T-Rex, you didn't know who I was. And we got to see, like, with my friend DC Villain, how many people are wearing Jurassic Park shirts and don't know jack about Jurassic Park, because I'm standing right next to them walking by, and my friend would be like, look, Jurassic Park shirt. And then he'd be like, you know who that is? And they're like, no. I was like, wow. So I had to roll up one of those, like, free posters that they give out or whatever, and I was still able to hold on to my, like, amber piece. So I put it on top of the poster and just held that as, like, a cane, and then, like, it was more easy for people to recognize that aren't so used to Jurassic Park or aren't big fans of it. But it was weird to see so many people wearing Jurassic Park shirts, not Jurassic World, Jurassic Park shirts, and didn't even give me a second look. I was like, wow, okay. Nobody knows who Hammond is. All right.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that conventions here with the same thing. Like, someone's gone to a local store and picked up a shirt just to go to conventions like this and show that, hey, I used to know this franchise or property or whatever else, and then going past tables that are designed or featuring stuff from that franchise, and they don't even stop to look at it.
Yeah, it was very, very disappointing. I was like, okay. But
I went to Star Wars Celebration last April, and I kind of did like a generic Rebel soldier outfit, and I brought a lightsaber, but I was like afraid they would take one. They wouldn't let me through. I wasn't sure if there'd be metal detectors or not.
Yeah.
And they ended up having them, but like they didn't, like, if they saw it was a lightsaber, they didn't even bother with you. But I didn't even want to chance it because I didn't want, like, my stuff getting taken away from me, you know. So I ended up bringing a plastic toy one instead.
Yeah,
play it safe.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that that's getting that way, but I mean, there's crazy people out there, I guess, and they'll jump on the chance to do some harm.
Well, yeah, some of the really large weapons like the swords now I can sort of understand, because just the attendance at these conventions are getting larger and larger. And sometimes they're not growing into bigger spaces, so there's a lot of stuff jammed in there. If you've got someone trying to walk through a crowd in a Iron Buster suit, a Hulk Buster suit, or a big sword like that, like, it's going to cause problems. But a cane, I wouldn't think a cane would be that problematic.
Yeah, the thing, because it was I carved that cane out of a mop stick, so it was like, it was wood, it was a hard wood.
Okay.
So I guess, like, they thought I could just hit somebody with it. But the weirdest thing, though, which I thought, it's not even weird, it's just kind of moronic, really, oxymoron, which basically they told me I couldn't bring that in, right? But when you go inside the convention, they're actually selling swords.
Yeah.
Which I was like, what? Like, okay, I can't. I even said it. I was like, out loud. I was like, okay, I can't bring in my wooden cane, which basically I'm not gonna be hitting people with it. But this guy right here, or me myself, I can walk up to that table, buy a sword, and chop somebody up. Like, it just didn't make sense. But oh well.
Well, even I've seen at conventions here, like you always have people dressed up in the Resident Evil Umbrella uniforms, or these sort of mercenaries and that walking around with the airsoft guns and that on them, like fake guns with the orange caps on, of course, and having to have them checked at entry and that to get into the event. But then you can go around to airsoft exhibitors and that and buy the weapons or the fake weapons in the convention and not have them checked by security once you're in the convention itself. So
yeah, it's very, very strange how those rules work. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh well.
It's strange because I noticed that like at the local conventions here, you can buy like Denix props. Denix being like a full metal. They even sell blanks. Firearm replica manufacturer, and so I mean, like they're mostly they make non-firing replicas, but they do make blank shooters, and I mean, you could always just paint a real gun with an orange cap on it, with an orange front on it. I've seen it done, you know, but at the same time, like in Star Wars, a lot of the guns they built the props off of. Like in Han Solo's blaster was a C-96 Mauser, and the Stormtrooper blasters were British Sterling submachine guns, and so those were still live fire on the set. They actually fire blanks on the set. You can see the blank shells flying out of the pistols because it helped the animators It helped the animators know when to line up the effect for the kind of whatever material is used in the blaster shoot, and it also helped give a real life kind of cock back to the actors who were holding it.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But no, that was a getting back to the article itself. Good work on that article, Dave, and we'll see what other ones pop up in the future there.
If we split up, I'm going with you guys.
All right, just briefly before we do get into the minute itself, a little bit of feedback. This past couple of weeks, we had some good conversations over on the Facebook page in regards to that the fence, the aviary fence. It sparked some good conversation there as to what, why, how it exists. Jay, it's one sort of structure that you missed before we got to the aviary itself. Any thoughts on the fence, its design, purpose?
Well, the design itself, how it's off the cliff or whatever, it's a good location, especially for the type of animals that are being kept in. The thing that I always thought was weird is I'm ruining the future minutes with this, but that where it's has the opening like on the bottom for the river, like
no, not the actual aviary wall, the fence the Spinosaur crashes through.
Okay. All right, I thought we were talking about the aviary fence.
No.
Oh, how? Okay.
Because we sort of discussed then during the minute of if it was something that Masroni built, even though that wasn't a thing when Jurassic Park 3 was in. You could sort of retcon that's why it's a different design, or if it's engines first go at a fence before they built the fences on the park, and stuff like that. We're sort of looking.
Yeah, it does look very different to like the ones we see in the T-Rex paddock or the perimeter fence in Jurassic Park. It doesn't look anything like either fences that we see in Sorna in Lost World as well. There's like that fence around the village, and that looks very similar to the Jurassic Park ones. It could very well be like a first design attempt, and that's why it was just like more brittle for that thing to break through, or it just it's just movie magic because that thing just bursted through that fence like a locomotive like. I don't know how I don't know, man. It always boggles my mind how it just like burst through that, but couldn't get through that like doorway, and just ram that whole like little facility off the cliff into the cliff, like off into the aviary itself, because if it bursted through that fence, the power that the animal had to burst through there could have easily knocked that facility off its foundation, which it wouldn't have that much of a foundation being it's like built onto a cliff, you know?
No.
It's half of it's off into the cliff. So it would have been easy just to ram that, break through there. That would have been actually a cool scene, and have them just like running to get down into the aviary. It would have been more of a push, and then boom, they go from one moment of like terror into another one, like quick. There they had a little bit of time, but I guess they needed that for the talk, you know, the eggs and all that.
Yeah, true. Also, like, and I've been trying to push the thought of there was 4 months past the Nublar incident to when the hurricane hit, and what InGen was still doing on Sauna, even after the park's demise. Whether they decided to try and build a different fence after learning how the Tyrannosaur had escaped, or anything like that, and that's more of a fence design. Not while there's electricity running through it, it can be designed to keep animals in without if there's a power loss.
Yeah, that is interesting, because being when that incident happened, there was still like talk, I guess. Well, maybe we can do something about these animals, but then things happen and they just left those animals on their own. But I feel like after the incident in Nublar, it was just one incident, and Hammond was losing control of the company, and in those 3 years, 4 years, eventually, of course, his nephew took over. But in those 4 years, it probably was a battle of him trying to just have this island be a reserve and not make it another business venture. So in that time, there could have been time they were experimenting with like new fences, new dinosaurs, lots of new stuff that we don't know. And we'll probably never know, you know?
Yeah, it's a shame.
It should be a book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have that Claire book, but it'd be nice to have a book of like the events. And I know we have some of that like information from the viral sites and whatnot, like little gaps of information that we've been able to, they piece together. But it would really be good to have a book about like after the incidents of Jurassic Park until Jurassic World. That whole gap. Like, even we know what happens in 97, but it would be nice to know what happens between 93 and when is it that Masrani took over the islands or took over the reins of InGen?
98, I think.
Yeah, right there. 5 years, you know?
Yep.
It'd be nice to know what happens in those 5 years. Like everything, like detail for detail, you know? But I don't really see that happening though.
Yeah. Well,
Sadly.
that's exactly. It's sort of from the moment that helicopter flies off into the sunset at the end of Jurassic Park. At that point in time, there's only two carnivores, or one carnivore on the loose, and all the other animals are contained. Power's restored. Why was no one sent back in? Why? Yeah, that's a rabbit hole we can go into. All right, but yeah, it's good to see some discussion on the Facebook page, guys, and keep it up. Definitely keep on chatting there.
We need to get to the coast. That was the plan.
Are you sure? The closer you get to water, the bigger things get.
Ready to get into minute 60?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
As we end on minute 59 of Jurassic Park 3, Amanda and Grant had made their way across the bridge. Paul was reassuring Eric before he began his own trip across the walkway. As we open on minute 60, Eric slowly makes his way across the bridge as the thumping score begins to play silently in the background. At the 4-second mark, we cut back to Dr. Grant as he picks up a substance from the handrail of the catwalks and brings it to his nose to sniff it. At the 13-second mark, we cut back to Eric as he's nearing the halfway point of the bridge crossing, and suddenly his hand shakes with the railing as the bridge shudders. At the 25-second mark, Grant comes back to where Amanda's standing at the end of the bridge and looks up as the mist begins to part, and we can see a large caged roof above them. And Grant realises in shock that it's a bird cage, and Amanda asks, For what? At the 41-second mark, we cut back to Eric as he continues to stare forward into the mist. Beating drums of the score begin to pick up as the bridge moans and groans under the weight of something large approaching. And slowly, the adult Pteranodon emerges. Eric screams and runs back in the direction he'd come, calling out Dad. With this, Grant and Amanda and Paul and Billy, both hearing Eric, run out onto the bridge at full speed, throwing caution to the wind whether or not can hold their weight. And as the minute ends, the Pteranodon picks up Eric and begins to carry him deeper into the canyon. Oh, here we go. As we open on minute 60, Eric begins that slow walk across the bridge, or catwalk, across the canyon, and I love how we start to get this slow score of the drums building up as he's walking across there. And I also love how we got sort of rusted out railings, and Eric's still keeping a hand on one just in case the floor falls through, because he just seen what happened with Grant last minute. But we cut across the canyon to Grant as he picks up some crusty white material that's sitting on the handrail and brings it up to his face and sniffs it.
A little bit of scratch and sniff going on.
It's weird, especially when it crumbles in his hand as he's bringing it up to his face too. Like, he might be getting a bit of dust, a bit of particulate. But it's our first little sign that there's something alive in here with them. It's sort of a little callback too to some of the stuff cut out from The Lost World, where they get in the worker village and you can see the Pteranodon feces on the buildings and that in the area.
Just thankfully it doesn't lick it. One science you should not lick.
Well, we talked about it back when Billy and his counterpart are digging up the Velociraptor, and how you could tell fossilised bone by touching it with your tongue. And
you can touch it, period.
Yeah.
Fossils are, like as Billy describes, typically more smooth, whereas the rock around it is typically a bit rougher.
But we get a look on Grant's face here as he suddenly thinks he's just working it all out, and we cut back to Eric continuing across in the fog, and he's changed sides and is now running his hand along the right handrail, and because in the previous shot we did see that the handrail was damaged halfway across the bridge, but we cut down to his hand on the rail as we hear a loud thud, and the whole rail shakes as something large sort of impacts the bridge. And that's when we get Grant come back to the end of the bridge where Amanda's standing and begins to look up, and we get a cut from deeper in the canyon looking back towards the bridge as the fog slightly clears to review the massive dome framework above the canyon.
It's kind of weird because the shape of the dome is really inconsistent throughout this scene. We're kind of made to believe that there's one large dome at the mouth of the canyon, across the canyon. But if you look at the production, kind of sketch, it kind of lays out the various locations of where each set is meant to be within the correlation to the actual canyon. And it's interesting because it's actually the mouth of two canyons connecting at a intersection. So you have the half dome going across the canyon, and then you have like one section of the canyon going off further and deeper away from the dome section.
Yeah, and then you get the later on when they're leaving the Aviary altogether in the boat, and you look back up, and it looks like the dome's only covering one side of the canyon wall. Mm-hmm. Then you can see sort of the top of the canyon where it's fenced off, heading back deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, you wanted to be on this minute with the Aviary as well. You're not going to be here when we do see the dome later on. Any thoughts on the design of the Aviary itself?
Like I was saying earlier, when I thought we were talking about that. I like the whole design and everything, but when we do see that like entryway or like that exit into the river, it's a big enough like area where the these pteranodons could actually escape. If you see them kind of just like hanging out, rolling into the water, picking at Billy, falling in the water or whatever. I understand they might not like going into the water that much, but I don't know. I feel like it could be they could have escaped a long time ago through that exit.
Well, it's we do see Billy and Grant or Paul and Grant swim through it when they exit the building, and the Pteranodons don't follow, but obviously that's there to allow fish and that to swim into the aviary, which would be their food source, which means they'd have to dive into the water to catch said fish. Because we see later when we're sort of following Billy parasailing around the canyon, there's very little greenery apart from sort of mould on the rocky walls.
Yeah.
And if we see that they're meat eaters from the bones and that later, they've got to be getting fish from this stream.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd have bigger fish coming in from out the sea end than what would be coming in from the stream end on the opposite end. But yeah, that is an issue, having that large opening down there at the bottom of the dome.
Yeah, it's I was watching JP3 not too long ago, and I remember like I've seen it again, but it just caught my attention again, and I was just like, they really could have just gone out that exit a long time ago if they were desperately trying to leave. Like, but then again, who knows? Because maybe that wasn't their plan the entire time, and they just that one that came down onto the fence. That one that's like when they're leaving is like hooked onto the fence, like hitting it. Maybe that one figured the door was open. Called to the others, "Hey guys, guess what? We can go." Really? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can go now. Forget about the babies, though.
I recall that scientists theorized that Pteranodon typically did not try to actively swim because the pycnofibers on their bodies and wings would kind of cause them to be heavy and not be able to fly. So it's possible that instinct was still kind of ingrained in them, and that they just didn't typically want to dive under the water for an extended period of time, because the water's not really very super deep here. It's probably maybe 7 feet deep at most at the edge there. Around the center, it's a bit shallower. We see probably about like knee deep water that Billy's running through. But yeah, I'd have to say. Sorry, what was that?
That's a good explanation. That's a good one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
We do see them when they're attacking Billy later. They're just sort of hovering, flapping above the waterline, and sort of ramming their beaks down into the water to get him. I suppose it makes it hard too with Jurassic World and seeing them dive into the water there after Zara. But again, different species, I suppose we can chalk that up to. And one thing in the novel that we'll get to a bit later, these animals are described or hinted at being a lot larger than what the real animals would be, and InGen doing their genetic tampering and not having it on their list.
And very different from the Lost World ones too.
Yeah.
Like I think the Jurassic World ones are pretty big too, because that one scene where that one kind of dives down, gets tranked, and like the beak goes right at like Gray and Zach.
True.
Yeah, that was a big Pteranodon. Yeah, that was a real big one. And these ones were pretty big too, but these had that classic Pteranodon look. The one from Lost World had it's somewhat classic, but they're all like subspecies of the Pteranodon. I forget their names. They have like it's Pteranodon something on Cenops or Laxops or whatever. You know, David. You probably know.
Yeah. There was InGens, which I think is kind of a nomen dubium now, let's see. Let me check out the different species here real quick. I know there was Longiceps is the.
There you go.
main species, and then there was ingens, which was, I think, is considered nomium dubium now, which is it's like kind of up in the air. It's like Troodon, where they're not really sure whether it's a valid species anymore or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Sternbergi, which I think got, it did. It got it's now Geosternbergia.
Mm-hmm. But did any of those actually have teeth though? Because we see the JP3 ones have teeth.
No, that is a genetic fuck up, and
yep. Mm-hmm.
I actually mentioned that to one of my geology professors one time, and he looked like somebody hit him in the face with a brick. Like, wait, Pteranodon with teeth?
I've always thought, I knew that Pteranodons don't have teeth, and just seeing, I know, I think I'm probably pronouncing the name wrong, but I've always pronounced it this way, Rhamphorhynchus. I know they have teeth.
Same way.
They have because they eat little insects and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then Ornithochirus, I think, is the other one, has teeth as well. But Pteranodon has always been depicted without teeth. And then when I first saw JP3, I didn't notice the teeth. I started noticing the teeth when I saw stills from the movie. I'm like, do they have teeth? And I'm like, what? And I'm like,
it's funny because the name Pteranodon literally means tooth or wing without tooth. Or toothless wing or something. It's something like that. And so they're named specifically with the fact that they don't have teeth in mind. So the Jurassic Park Legacy came up with a subspecies name for it, Hippocrates or something like that, just because they're hypocrites, literally. They're Pteranodon with teeth.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
like a saber-toothed tiger without any saber teeth, you know?
Now, do the Jurassic World ones have teeth? I don't remember. I know the toys do. The toys have teeth on them.
No, when you see, you mentioned the one that kind of crash lands right in front of Zack and Gray in Jurassic World, and you get a good close up at the mouth in that scene. And no, they didn't have any teeth. The toys probably did because Hasbro is Hasbro.
Yeah, I it's funny because I just looked back behind me. I forgot I have one of the Jurassic World toy panels on my wall. I just looked back. It's a huge one that says Pteranodon. Yeah, right there. There's no teeth on it. I was like, wait, I have the proof. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, and they look very strange in Jurassic World. They look like I don't know. They don't look right to me.
Mm. Yeah.
The Jurassic World ones or the ones here?
The Jurassic World ones. I feel like if you mix the Lost World one with the JP3 one, I think there's the between those two, the Lost World one just looks like one of the scientifically drawn ones that you see, like one of the subspecies, right? Mm-hmm. The Jurassic Park 3 one looks like it, but it has a little bit of classic Pteranodon monster from the old days in it. Mm-hmm. And then the Jurassic World one, I don't know what the hell, with that, the body is like weird. It's just strange.
The entire thing is misshapen. It looks like they pulled a thin sheet of flesh over the skeleton, and then said, "Okay, we're good." It has no muscles at all. And it just terrible.
Yep. And even the face, I'm looking at it right now. It has almost like a skull face, like it's all indented in.
Yeah, it's like if you've ever seen the diagram of a skull with its eyeballs. In it, that's exactly what the Jurassic World Pteranodon looked like.
Yep, the Dimorphodons look good. I think they looked all right.
They're okay.
But the Pteranodons, nah, I don't know, man. They just don't look right to me.
I think they're hideous. They're one of my least favorite designs in the entire franchise.
Yeah, and we've talked before about some designs in Jurassic World, how they didn't quite get them right. Or there was some
Oh
issues
no,
there.
the Allosaurus has been a big debate.
The Stegosaurs.
Yeah, they just went back to like the old like designs from the old days, like even the like lumbering, slow, like all the herbivores in Jurassic World just look like they're just like just walking around. They're like, oh look, there they are. Oh look, it's hitting a tree again. Oh, they look very slow. Like they don't look like these active dinosaurs, like these active herbivores that we know. Triceratops, they should be running around, ramming stuff, hitting the jeeps. You know what I mean? It feels like all of them were tranked, like all of them been like dumbed down by Wu, and that's probably what they did actually. If you think about it,
they probably did, because that reminds me of version 4.4 from the novel, where Wu wanted to basically downgrade the dinosaurs to be slower and more like public perception, because he was like, they're too fast, they're too real, they're too much for the public perception. You know?
Exactly, and that's the whole reason the Jeeps in Jurassic Park had the red stripes on, because in the book, the trucks were ramming the Jeeps, and now you've got gyrospheres, clear balls just roaming around in between them, and it's like their aggressive switches have been turned off.
I think so, man. I think the ones that weren't turned off, this is all like cool theory right now, but like I feel like the ankylosaurs were the ones that didn't get it just right with the tranking them down, dumbing them down a little bit, because the ankylosaurs were out there just ramming stuff. They went after the Indominus, that one that stood up, that brave soul. It stood against the Indominus, you know. And I feel like even if they would have put one of those Triceratops in front of the Indominus, it would have been like, oh, what is that? I'll just roll on my belly.
Yeah, like, wait a minute, let me lay down.
Yeah, you know, they didn't look too smart, man. And even in Fallen Kingdom, they were still very lumbering. Like I really do not like how they like the designs from Lost World were perfect. Yeah, you could update them if you want, you know, of course, with moving signs, but like you look at the difference between the Stegosaur and the Stegosaur that they have in Lost World and in Jurassic World. Difference is staggering. How it just does not look right. And like you look at the concept art though, it's not bad. Like the concept art, it still looks very reminiscent to Lost World. But then when I don't know what happened in between concept art and the CGI work, that it just went backwards, and they just looked bad. And then in Fallen Kingdom, they looked even worse. That one scene, I think we've talked about it before, where Wheatley takes the tooth and the thing doesn't have a beak, and it just looks very Muppet-ish to me.
Not only does it not have a beak, but the tooth has a mammalian root system.
Oh god!
It's got like a 3-prong roots, like a human tooth.
Yes.
A little bit of the original Jurassic Park 4 sneaking in there.
Little do we know that the entire time the only animal that was spliced with human DNA was a Stegosaurus. That's it.
It's funny because when I first saw the trailers and they started showing the herbivore scene where with the gyrosphere, and we saw all the herbivores standing around in the field, and I noticed the Stegosaurus, and I'm like, what the hell? Why is this tail dragging? And I took a screen cap from the YouTube video and posted a short rant on Facebook about it. And then all of a sudden it started getting traction. And Thomas Holtz shared it, a couple of his followers shared it, and then I think a couple other paleontologists shared it, and the next thing I know is I'm seeing an article, why are the paleontologists hating on Jurassic World even though it's not even out yet? And I'm like, it's my fault that they're hating on it, you know?
Well,
someone would have found it.
It's justified. There's a lot of designs that just really were not good. One of the ones that I I've absolutely hated. Like, I loathe this design, is the Allosaurus design in Fallen Kingdom. I hate that design. Like, I love Allosaurus. That's like a really, really badass dinosaur. And it is drawn awful. Like, it is an awful looking thing. Like, I remember when we saw the trailer, same thing, but I didn't look at the Stegosaurus. I was for Fallen Kingdom though. You see a dinosaur running next to the Gyrosphere. I'm like, what is that thing? What is that? And I'm like, oh, whatever it is, it looks goofy as hell. Like, it doesn't look like a real dinosaur. It looks like it came out of Land Before Time, you know. And then people are saying, oh, it's a Suchomimus. I'm like, oof, that's an ugly Suchomimus. And then somebody,
I was like, I first saw it, and all I saw, all I could see of it was the snout pointing down with the thin snout, kind of long. I'm like, awesome, we finally got Suchomimus in the movies. And then one of my friends, who has a bit more inside info than I do, messaged me on Facebook and says, that's not the Suchomimus. Don't tell anybody, but that's the Allosaurus. I'm like, ew. That's the Allosaurus?
When I found out it was the Allosaurus too, I was like, I'm pretty sure I did almost the same thing like you, but instead with Stegosaurus, I put an Allosaurus clip, and I was like, that is not an Allosaurus. I'm like, that is the ugliest looking Allosaurus I've ever seen. Like, that, who did the concept art for this? And then, like, I saw, like, the concept art, and they took it straight from that. And I'm like, nothing against the artist, but he didn't know what the hell he was drawing. Like, I'm sorry, you didn't. I don't know what references you used or what he was trying to draw, or if he's trying to, draw from, like, Valley of Guanji. You know, like, that thing didn't look like an Allosaurus that we have nowadays, you know? It just... like, he didn't use the right skull. I don't know, man. There's so many things wrong with it. Like, there's so many things wrong.
From what I've heard, it's the juvenile in Fallen Kingdom, and we'll see the adult version in Battle of Big Rock that airs before the Hobbs and Shaw movie.
I heard the same thing, but I think that's just... I don't know. I think because they I don't know, dude. Even the, like, larger version still doesn't look right. The toy looks okay, but I've seen what the larger version looks like.
Yeah, I have too.
You have, right? And it's an improvement, but it's very... How would I say? It's very Jurassic World-ish. That's the best way to put it. You know what I mean? There's a certain... like style they're making these dinosaurs look now. There's the Jurassic Park style, and then there's a Jurassic World style.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
Yeah, it's weird. Even with the Triceratops, you look at them, and they got somewhat of a similarity to the old Triceratops that we know and love, but it's still different. And same thing with the Rexy, and same thing with the Raptors. You look at the Raptors; they look different. You look.
They do. They look just off. The teeth are wrong. The head shape is wrong. The snout shape. The fingers are wrong. Even
where they placed the nostrils is wrong. They placed them a little more like up or something, and
pelvic bone. The tails are shorter and meatier. I did a whole.
No, they're fat. Yeah, they're fat.
Yeah, they are.
These Raptors are fat. Like I was saying, I was comparing some like the Mattel Raptor toys, and I said the newer blue that they came out with, that like Savage Stripe blue, whatever, not the jumping one they've made a million times of, the new one or whatever that they piece together other parts of other dinosaurs. That one looks more like blue to me than the Battle Damage. Battle Damage looks like a classic Raptor. If you take out
it's perfect. I love that sculpt.
Yeah, if you take out those little like pebbles that it has on its on its neck, that is Jurassic World Raptor, because they didn't have that in the old ones. They didn't have these like little like round pebbles on them. It's the perfect Raptor design. Now, the newer blue, that looks like more like blue to me, because blue's fat, dude. she is not a slim, like, raptor from, like, the old days. She's not a slim raptor like the Lost World ones or the JP3 or even the Jurassic Park ones. She's thick. You know?
We're gonna get some hate from the fandom on this one, I think.
Oh.
How dare you call her fat?
Yeah, no, I've been getting a little bit of hate here and there for some of my opinions lately, but I don't care. I have to voice them, man. You have to.
I know.
Yeah. Yep.
You know.
Yep. Well, that's.
Well, wow, that was a huge tangent right there.
That might be our biggest yet. Hitting on all 5 movies and several different subjects. Shall we go back and actually see the reveal of the Pteranodons before we start talking about it?
That's. Yeah, that was crazy. That was a good one.
Yeah. We cut back as Eric looks forward, worried as something slowly makes its way towards him in the fog, and he whispers, "Mom," which. Interesting that he'd think it's his mum coming back. But,
talking about heavy, I guess she got heavy when she came back out there.
Yeah.
I put on a few pounds.
She's skipping across the bridge.
I was just gonna say I do like the music in this part of the scene here, just because that it reminds me a lot of the Lost World with that dum dum dum.
Yeah.
The slow drum beat going on.
And this was Davis, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Don Davis, right? Is it Don Davis?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. No, the music in this scene is perfect because it is like feeding into your soul that something bad is about to happen, and like you're just like Grant. Oh, we're in a bird cage.
Yeah. Well, that's it. As that drumming continues, we cut back to Grant and Amanda as he looks up and says those words, "Oh my God, it's a birdcage." And she responds, "For what?"
And there's actually a deleted line here that was in the script where Grant replies for something else that wasn't on Injun's list.
That would have been cool if they would have left that on there.
I agree.
I think that would have been alright.
Meanwhile, back across the bridge where Eric stopped, the 43-second marks when we get that gorgeous reveal of the Pteranodon coming out of the fog. And as Eric screams and turns and runs, that drum beat sort of transitions into the main theme for the Aviary chase. But as for reveals in the franchise, like number one would probably all say is the Tyrannosaur breakout, just the footsteps.
Oh yeah.
And then the clawed hand on the fence. But where's this sort of reveal come compared to some of the others in the franchise?
This is a good one, but now you got me thinking back all the reveals. I'm like, wait.
The Brachiosaurus is still a top for me, along with the Stegosaurus.
I would say, you know what I would say? I would have to separate them, like from herbivore, like good reveals, like happy reveals, I guess, and scary reveals, like. Even though none of them ever really scared me, but like it would be like scary moment reveals of like these dinosaurs, like the Brachiosaur is a happy reveal. It's beautiful seeing this thing, but then again, when I see the T-Rex, it's beautiful as well, but it's in a more horror type of beautiful, I guess.
Yeah, well that's it. I mentioned here would be in your top 5, and I don't think you could actually make top 5. That was probably an impossible thing to ask. And
oh yeah, no, it's rough.
Even just another reveal from this film that we talked about earlier is just that silhouette of the raptor running past the windows in the administration building. Just stuff like that. Like, the oh crap.
Like the first raptor reveal in Jurassic Park is an amazing reveal. Hey, John, I think we're back in business. Boom, the thing's like right behind her. That's one of the best scares, you know?
But at the same time, I'm more of a sucker for the kitchen scene. It's not really a reveal because we've already seen the raptor, but that entrance where the raptor, all we hear is the purring sound, then also you see the snout come into the window, and then it breathes on the glass, and then we see look down, and the door suddenly opens.
Well,
that was awesome.
Especially considering 5 seconds earlier you had Ellie telling Grant, or Grant pumping the shotgun and saying, "You're sure the third one's contained?" And she says, "Yes, let's figured out how to open doors, and then all of a sudden here we get to see that.
Mm-hmm.
You see what you did, Brad? You just now we're gonna go through all the best reveals.
That
is such a great one, though. That is such a great one, though. It really is. And I mean, I think it's like also the reveal with the Triceratops. How amazing is that when like the reaction of the actors was genuine, because you watch the behind the scenes. It was like the first one they filmed with that was an actual like real dinosaur like laying there, and their reaction seeing this thing look so alive is so genuine, so real that it gets you like
It's
completely
a little misty-eyed.
Yeah, it really does. It's like, wow. And then, hearing Grant go, she was my favorite as a kid. That's Spielberg saying that. Because Spielberg loves the Triceratops. And he talks about how his dad got him that little Triceratops from, I think, the Franklin Institute, he says. And, so, like, a lot of, like, the big reveals were in Jurassic Park. But, like, newer dinosaurs, I guess, we would say, like, this one with the Pteranodon is an incredible reveal, because this thing, how it looks, is so horror. It's just walking there, like quietly, knowing it's pretty much just like, that's your time's up. Here I am, like and it's got his beak down. It's walking on its wings, because like these creatures, when we watch like science documentaries, like dinosaur documentaries, Walking with Dinosaurs, we get to see these things walking on their wings. You don't really see that now, like unless you see like a bat or what's another animal that kind of it's really bats that walk like that, and people don't really too often see bats walking on the ground, so unless you're like not used to dinosaur documentaries, seeing this thing walk on its wings across that bridge is otherworldly. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. So that entrance is like, it is an incredible entrance for this dinosaur. Well deserved, because this is something that like they wanted in the franchise for a long time, and they kind of got a glimpse of it in Lost World, but finally you're able to see these guys in action and going after the humans.